Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining this Instagram Live Q&A. We're going to be talking about how to have a productive summer despite COVID-19. I'd like to allow just a minute or two for some more people to join in before we really get started and get into to the heart of what we're going to be talking about today. Today's an exciting day. We have college admissions expert Christina joining us. So I'm going to take a minute and go ahead and add her to our Instagram Live session. Should be coming on. Hope everyone's having a good day today. Hi, Christina. How are you?
Hi. Good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Welcome to our live Q&A today. Thank you so much for joining us. How's your day been?
It's been lovely. It's actually been not, I don't want to say a stress-free day because I don't know that is existing in these times, but it was actually an actually really productive day. So thank you for asking.
Well, that's great. That's really good to hear. Yeah, productive is always good. It's been a little bit of a challenge. I'm sure just about everyone can relate to that. In the past few months, there's just something about some people are used to working from home. For others, it's been a little bit of an adjustment, a little bit of a challenge. So yeah, but it's always good to hear. I would agree. I feel like I've been able to have a nice productive day, and it's been a nice day just outside, and I actually I have a 2-year-old daughter named Lucy, and so I've in some ways it's been kind of nice to be home to spend more time with her. So that's always a plus for me. And so yeah, got a lot done today. It's a nice day out. I get to see my daughter all day, so I can't complain.
I think that's one of the silver linings of all of this. Some days I may not think that, but I have 9-year-old triplets. And
oh wow.
yes, so they are home. Obviously, I'm working from home, and so it's been great spending time with them, being able to do that. But to your point, sometimes a productive day, you never know what the day is going to look like. So
Yeah.
if I check off, 3 or 4 things that I had planned to do and get them done well, then I call it a win. So, and the fact that I'm sitting here now and I actually can't hear them, I don't know if I should be concerned or
Yeah.
like.
I know the feeling. You should be hearing a sound in the other room, and and suddenly it goes quiet, and it's like there's it's like a panic signal goes off. Something's going on. I know the feeling. But yeah, that's great. How is does it feel like summer in Ohio? Is the weather pretty nice?
It is. It's been actually, we had a while where it was very rainy, and which of course, being home with children stuck inside is not ideal to have the rain.
Yeah.
But it's been gorgeous actually. It's been perfect outside, and my kids are enjoying it. And it's one of the things I've been telling my students. Even I said, get out, get away from your screens for a little bit. I feel like we've all been trapped inside, or take your screen outside, which is, something I'm trying to make myself do now that it's been nicer out, to actually know that I can listen to a webinar or a podcast or something outside. I don't have to be inside doing that. So I've been trying to actually get in some walks and runs by listening to things like that too. And so I've been encouraging my students to do the same, because there's a lot of them are still, I know we're going to get into the meat of all this stuff, but a lot of them, what we're asking them to do right now still involves sitting in front of a screen, and they've just gotten done with 3 months of doing that. Some of them are still wrapping up school, so it's a double-edged sword, because you want them to get that stuff done, but you have to realize they're tired.
Yeah, screen fatigue is a real thing. It's a real issue. So that's a great point. But I think I like that a lot. I like that idea of take your screen outside, take your podcast outside, put in the earphones, get some fresh air, get some sun, be a little active, but also, entertain your mind, or, whatever we gain from that. So, okay, awesome. Well, I think it's a good time to get started. So first off, let me just introduce myself briefly. My name is William Jackie. I'm an independent educational consultant at Strive to Learn. I also work as the academic coordinator, and I tutor students, and I work on test prep as well. Strive to Learn, let me tell you a little bit about Strive to Learn, is a small business in Costa Mesa. We aim to bring access to resources for all students. We have a threefold approach to truly support our students through K through 12 education, and even all the way through graduate school. And the threefold approach is we have tutoring and academic subjects for anything you may be dealing with in school, any subjects that you may need a little extra help with, and guidance and organization. We also do test prep, so that includes SAT, ACT, GRE, ISEE, and more. And then lastly, one that is close to both of our hearts, and that's college admissions counseling. Now, me personally, I, in addition to working in these ways, I have a background in English, and I really enjoy storytelling. I really enjoy writing. And that's one of my favorite parts about the college admissions process and about college counseling, is getting to help students basically tell their story, tap into something that's meaningful to you about who you are, and then being able to share that with these schools that you're applying to. That's a big part of the process that I really enjoy. And just in general, when I work with students, I really like to stress the idea of having a plan, and also knowing where to look, to get the information that is useful, that's going to help you really make informed decisions. And so with that in mind, what we're going to be talking about today is how to have a productive summer despite COVID-19. And I think having a plan and knowing where to look are a couple of really important factors in terms of how to make this a productive summer. So as we kind of just talked about a minute ago, summer is here pretty much. In some places more so than other, but some schools might still be in session. In our area in Southern California, most schools have just gotten out or have been out for a few weeks. But pretty much summer is here. And this is going to be a slightly different summer than most of us have experienced before. Maybe all of us have experienced before. In general, though, summer is a break for students from the busy school schedule. Traditionally, that's one of the benefits of it. That's one of the reasons that we all like summer when we're younger, and in a lot of ways, as adults even, we like summer for those reasons. At the same time, it's a chance to get some things done that you had to push back or put on the back burner during the school year. Things like for high school students, things like test prep, things like planning for college. And so, the whole idea of being productive during summer, okay, it might not sound like the most fun way to spend your summer on the surface, but it can be. If it's done with intention and with planning ahead of time, it can actually be enjoyable, and it can be rewarding being productive. And so that's kind of what we want to talk about today. My hope for the conversation we're going to have today is that we can provide clarity and insight about some different activities that you can do during this COVID-19 summer. So we're going to talk about how to be productive this summer, keeping in mind that there are some things that are slightly different this summer, and that is a big part of what we're going to talk about today. Now, I want to introduce our guest expert in a little more detail. Again, her name is Christina Dooley. She's a certified educational planner. She founded Estrella Consulting in 2008, and it's located in Hudson, Ohio. Before she started Estrella, she worked as the Assistant Director of Admission at Hiram College in Ohio, and the Director of Admission and Marketing at Andrews Osborne Academy, also in Ohio. Also, she has worked with students from around the world. She had the opportunity to live in Brazil, Argentina, and Mexico, which sounds amazing. And so those experiences abroad, she says, led her to a deeper passion for working with international and expatriate students, especially students from Latin America. Christina is also an instructor in the Independent Educational Consulting Program at University of California, Irvine. And she's a faculty member at the IECA Summer Training Institute at Swarthmore College, training aspiring educational consultants. She shares her expertise through websites, books, and magazines through writing. And she's also a sought-after speaker at conferences around the U.S. She's a professional member of the Independent Educational Consultants Association, a member of the Higher Education Consultants Association, and the Ohio and International Associations for College Admissions Counseling. So, Christina, thank you so much again for joining us.
You're welcome. That was quite the intro. That's my bio, I know, but
exactly.
Hearing it,
I can't take credit I can't take credit for writing such a good bio. But yeah. So to get into what the heart of what we want to talk about today, sorry, I did want to mention a couple things really quick. Just a couple of really quick things before we get into it. This is a Q&A, so I want to remind anyone who's watching that you can write questions anytime down below, and we will both do our best to try to answer them during the hour that we have today. So you can either write a comment, or there is the question mark box on the bottom, and you can go ahead and write a question through there. And I will do my best to get to them as soon as we can during the Q&A today. And one more thing is, if you were watching this, Christina is on the bottom of the screen, and I don't want the screen to get cluttered if there are comments that come in. So I just wanted to let everyone know, if you're not super familiar with Instagram Live, you can kind of pull those comments down lower on the screen if you just put your finger on the screen and kind of swipe down, and it will minimize those comments, just so you don't have a bunch of text over Christina's face. Okay, so without further ado, we are going to get into some specifics about what to do this summer, but I wanted to start with a general question. So with all of the instability that students have been experiencing in the past few months, all the uncertainty and just the changes, do you have any general advice or words of encouragement for any students who are concerned about changes in either the admissions and application process, or just how college life and the college experience has changed in general?
Absolutely. The statement that I feel like it's just playing on repeat in my day-to-day interactions with my students and their parents is that at this time, because things are literally changing every day, every single day, it's challenging for people doing the work that we do and helping guide students to keep up with all of the updates from colleges in terms of, are we going test optional? Are we going to be test flexible? Are the campuses opening up in the fall? If so, what percentage of students are coming back? What does that look like? Are we accepting pass fail? What's, all these different things. And literally the changes are happening throughout the day. So what I've been telling students, and I'm glad they're seeing the amount of information that we're seeing on our end in terms of all of these things, because I could just imagine how much anxiety that would induce. It induces anxiety in me. But what I tell students is, and I've been saying this over and over, you need to focus on the things that you can control right now. There are absolutely things that you can control. It may not feel like that in the moment, but there are certain things. I'll give an example would be, we all know that students will be writing the main common application essay prompt, right? Main 650 word or less essay prompt. We know that that's going to happen. So that's something they can control. They can work on that. Actually, and I think we're going to talk about maybe the COVID essay prompt or optional prompt that will be on the common application, but their main essay probably isn't going to be about COVID-19. And so I think that's something they can control. That's an example. Another thing would be, even though test dates are being canceled, postponed, et cetera, there will probably be test dates in the fall. There probably will. There's always the who knows, what's going to happen. So if they are a student who is focusing on testing, test preparation can happen. You can control that. You can spend some time over the summer doing those things. The things that you can't control are when our campus is going to open up back to normal visits. We don't know. So should you be scheduling a visit's in August. I don't know. That's not controllable by you or by even the colleges. So I'd say that's the piece of advice I'm just giving to families is focus on the things that you can control, and we're trying to identify what are those things, how students are spending their time right now that they can control. And so that's what my answer would be is, that's the message. I think it's a really simple message. There was a great comic that was, I don't remember the publication, but someone shared it in one of our groups a few weeks ago of a woman looking into a crystal ball, and it said, well, I can't tell you whether or not, I can, it's like, okay, well, we could all try to predict. We could all go, and see, ask anybody, you'll get 10 different answers. So,
Yeah, I love that response. And, I would just add just a message of, if you're one of these students right now, don't be discouraged from your aspirations and your goals. Hold on to those things. Hold on to the dreams that you have of what you would like to do and what you have been working towards already. If you're someone who's been working hard and it's been a goal of yours to go to college, this is not the end of anything. Don't feel like the work that you've done up to this point has been in vain, because colleges and universities know that students want the traditional college experience, meaning being able to actually go to the college and have the in-person hands-on learning opportunities and have the dorm residence life. Just the entire traditional college experience is something that colleges and universities are going to bring back. This is a temporary situation, and I just want to give some brief encouragement on that. Hold on to your aspirations. Hold on to your goals. Okay,
sure,
so let's talk about. I'm sorry.
No, I just said it's not a hard stop, and I think that's one of the things, everyone feels like it came to like a screeching halt, but really it's a slowdown, in some ways, in terms of maybe the pace at which students would normally be doing things in the process, whether they are rising seniors or rising juniors or going off to school. It's not a hard stop. It's a slowdown. Let's take this time to look at the things that, what does this timeline look like right now? But it doesn't, like to your point, one of my fears, I know I'm probably going off topic, but one of my fears is that we will have a lot of students who make a decision, it's without I don't want to say without thought, but without the necessary thought about not going to school, whether it's this year or next year, what their path looks like, what kinds of schools they might be looking at, all of those things that you just mentioned. To your point, I think they should continue on with goals, with the goals that they had in mind. I think that's a good thing to keep. It's important for them at this point, also for their mental health, to keep those goals in mind. Yeah.
So in regards to tests, in regards to the ACT and the SAT, a few things I wanted to ask about. So first off, for rising seniors who haven't taken an official test yet, an official SAT or ACT, or for those rising seniors who want to retake it. They took it one time or maybe even twice, and they feel like they can get a higher score, and they're shooting for a target score based on the colleges they're applying to. So for those students, would you recommend the summer as a good time to study for it, and why or why not, would you say?
What I'm telling my students, I think a lot of it depends on the individual student. There's some students that are, incredibly motivated to bump up their score. They will take the time over the summer to consistently be prepping, whether that's on their own or with a tutor or with one of the free online programs. What I have actually told students, and we were kind of talking about this, this screen fatigue, and is that I think I've given my students some time right now to say, take a little bit of time right now, not focus on, and I say on learning, because you're always learning, but I think I'm focusing on structured learning. I think this time right now it's not giving them a pass, but giving them some line, to say, you can take a little bit of time away from this, but probably come, depending on what test they want to take in the fall, if they're taking one of the early ones, come August, they really need to be prepping because we know, I mean, and having been in the test prep industry, it's not a sprint. You can't, cramming doesn't work, and it's not. So if they can spread it out, it also maybe lessens some anxiety on that end too, that they're not feeling like they're rushing, 2 weeks before the test to try to get ready for it when they truly, from a math perspective, I think some kids are going to struggle because of being away from traditional school setting for the last few months. But I think there is value in taking the time, maybe during the later part of the summer. I think now I think kids need to focus a lot on just, their physical health, their mental health, their families. In that, I think that there's a lot of that going on. So I'm giving them a little bit of a pass in that, in terms of not saying spend the entire summer prepping. I don't know that that makes a ton of sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like that a lot. I think it's good to be mindful of just where you're at, what kind of you just, passed through in terms of, about 3 months of online school and just all day screen time. I think that's a really good point to bring up. And I would say to rising seniors, if you haven't had the opportunity to take the SAT or ACT yet, and you're going to take it or planning to, at least for applying to college, I would highly recommend registering as soon as possible, because it's just going to be a pretty in-demand time. That doesn't mean, you can still do what Christina said and give yourself a little time to kind of pause and just recenter yourself. But I would say, in terms of actually making sure that you're going to be able to take the test, it's a good idea to register as soon as you can.
Yeah, I think the planning of when they'll take it, I think that has to be planned out. Like you said, not even in regular time that should happen. There should be a good testing timeline, but even more so now when we know there'll be limited capacity in testing sites, and there'll be that we already got, with registrations for the summer tests. I think that it's going to be a totally different time. There won't be the availability. So if someone knows that they want to take an October test, you know, even thinking ahead that far, schedule it, and if something happens and they decide not to sit for it, then that's another, that's a decision then, but it's better to be proactive and know that you have a seat, you have a spot, than to not do that. And you're right, get on top of when the registration's open, you have to be on top of it. We're already seeing the testing, so.
Mm. And then as far as rising juniors go, coming from a test prep perspective, we tend to recommend the summer after your sophomore year as a really good time to start studying, to start getting some familiarity with what the tests are like and the content that's on them, and just the format of the different sections. So that's something that traditionally we have recommended is, perfect time to start right after your sophomore year, because then you have somewhere from 7 to 9 test dates during your junior year. You can pace it out however you would like to. This year's a little different though. Would you still recommend that rising juniors focus on this summer as a time to study for the ACT, SAT, or even schedule one of the late summer, fall test dates?
I'll answer the second part of that. One of the things that I think I've learned is, if students have the time and opportunity to sit for a test, if they're, and they a lot of it has to do with schedules. I think of that, like my marching band who, want to take the tests in the fall, and I think a Saturday morning after a football game, is that the most ideal time? So fitting them in when it makes the most sense in terms of your academic schedule. Are you overloaded or not? And then your activity schedule. If they have one of those opportunities in the fall to do it, but what I've learned is that take that opportunity. Don't say, oh well, I could push it off. We saw, and this is not the fault of any students, parents, or otherwise, but this spring we saw what happened because of our current world situation. Testing canceled, kids not being able to go on visits, and I had students who said, oh, now I wish I would have done insert, test, visit, etc., when I had an opportunity opportunity to do it in the fall, which felt maybe early to them. So now I'm just telling students, I'm not telling you to do these things sooner than later because I'm trying to induce anxiety. And you say, you have to be, but we want to be prepared, and it's better to have a test a test under your belt going in case a great example, the second wave hits and we do see test cancellations, that having that I think would make sense if it fits in their schedule. So yeah, I'd say go ahead and do it, plan for it. If they can get a spot. I mean, that's the other thing too. I feel like my seniors, I'd love for my, the kids the rising seniors who haven't had an opportunity or don't have scores. I think they should have the price to sit for those tests. But I don't make those rules.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. About basically, don't take opportunities for granted. This year happened. This year happened, and no one saw it coming. I have students I'm working with who, there was every reason to recommend taking the SAT in March, taking the ACT in April. They had been studying for 2-3 months and were so ready for it, and then just 2 days before, everything started shutting down for good reason. But, it unfortunately just threw those plans off. So I think that's a great point to really just don't take opportunities for granted. It's there and it makes sense for you, for just general reasons. You take the opportunity. I think it's a good point too that you're mentioning. If a spot is available, I think that might be a way to gauge if it's a good time for you or not as a rising junior. Seniors are going to be filling up the spots because they didn't, because they had cancellations earlier in the year. It's going to be a little bit of a hustle, a little bit of a struggle to get a spot in. But if you do have an opportunity, it's a good opportunity to take advantage of it. Also, I want to ask about another development that has been kind of ongoing, was happening before the pandemic, but seemingly has accelerated a bit since test cancellations, and that's the increasing number of schools that are going test optional, that are making ACT, SAT scores optional for admissions. Do you think the average student should think differently about whether or not to take the ACT or SAT based on, the increasing amount of schools who are going test optional?
I don't have a single student that I'm working with or even reflecting on past students in recent years where I would recommend not taking anything. The exception to that could be, a student who, even if I don't even know that there's an exception, because the reason why I say that, there will still be schools not every school is test optional. I mean, that's just, even though we're hearing every day more and more schools becoming test optional, but then you've got, the semantics involved in this is the schools that are test optional, it does not mean it's test blind. It doesn't mean they don't want to see the scores. The schools that are becoming test optional now, not the that were test optional pre-COVID-19, but the ones that are test optional now for the class of 2021, and we'll see what happens beyond that. A lot of them are really clear statements saying, if you've got scores that are a good indicator of your ability, we want to see them. And I have students like that. I had a conversation yesterday with one of my students, and I said, you are one of those kids. This is going to be, your scores are, you've done a good job with what you have already in hand. They don't need to retake if they don't want to, which is great. They're in a good position. But that's the kind of student where I'd say, yeah, you should still have them. Even if the schools you're applying to are test optional, it could help you. It's a helpful data point. The other piece is there are still schools that are going to require them for merit scholarships. As much as people are complaining and, in the higher ed world, and counselors like us saying, well, why would you do that? It just is what it is. I've worked in higher ed. I know it's a challenge to determine merit awards when you don't have data, when you don't have numeric measures. It makes it a more challenging process. And I worked in a small school. I can imagine in a larger school how challenging that would be to identify merit levels without any kind of data points like that. So that's why we're also seeing some of the state schools that are not going, they will not go test optional because it makes the review challenging. So if I'm playing devil's advocate and looking at it from their standpoint, they're going to, I find it hard to believe that we're going to see a lot of those becoming test optional this year in light of this. It's also very quick. Meaning the colleges have to determine how will we review applicants. And that process is starting. The runway is very short until when that process starts. Although, Common App goes live August 1st, they hit the ground running with review. And so are they going to train all of their admission readers on a whole new process in the next 6 weeks to do that? So going back to your original question, I've just told my students, move forward with the assumption that you will have schools that will require testing. If they don't, depending on how you've done, we'll make that decision. It will be done on a school by school basis, really, because some schools we may say, yes, if you're in the middle 50% or higher, yeah, we might submit scores. If you're not, but your GPA is great and you're in line with, what in terms of the rigor of your class, what you've taken, just in general, then we may say let's not submit scores to that one. So it's going to be a case by case basis, but I'm not telling anybody, hey, everyone's going test optional. No need to worry about that at all. But on the other hand, I will say, if I have a student who hasn't taken a test, I don't have many of those because I would say most of the school districts where my students are, and I do have some kids who did not take tests. So that would be one of the pools of students. But my domestic students, for the most part, they were able to get in their in-school testing. So they all have at least one set of scores. So if I have a student who doesn't have scores at all going into the fall and they can't get a spot in one of those test centers on one of those dates, that'll just impact our search. There's thousands of colleges. I don't want to crush any dreams of a school that they've always wanted to go to, but we have to be realistic. So that's one of the pieces of advice I'd say.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it would just be such a terrible scenario for a student to have decided not to take either test because there are so many test optional schools, and I'm deciding I'm just going to apply to test optional schools, and then find what seems like close to perfect fit school, and then have to be too late because it's past, too late to apply because it's past the time when you can still take the ACT or SAT. So just keep your options open. Don't limit your options. I agree so much. Great points. And just a note to viewers, I have plenty more things I'd like to ask Christina about, but if you have any specific questions, make sure to put them down in the comments or in the question box, and we'll get to those for you. So moving on to just kind of general college planning over the summer, I want to ask, how would you recommend that students get started with figuring out where to apply to, which colleges and universities to apply to? What would you recommend?
So depending, if I have, right now I'd say my rising seniors are already in the list building process. They've already, I don't want to say they have final lists, but a lot of them have good drafts of lists, and they were able to do some research in the spring. Some did get in visits. For juniors right now, rising juniors, what I've been telling, one of the great things that's come out of all of this is, and I don't know if the layperson would know this, but there've been so many wonderful virtual opportunities that have been presented for families and students to explore colleges, not even just specific colleges, but college related topics. And we've seen that I think every week for at least the last 6 weeks, there have been virtual college fairs. There's, of course, the schools are offering virtual visit opportunities. I will say that those, and I certainly wouldn't name names of schools, but some of them have been hit or miss, because there have been some where it's clear that they're really trying to put something together for families, but they're doing it as rapidly as they can. And that's a challenge, especially it's just a challenge for everyone. So unless it's a school that's really already been dabbling in how do you present things in a virtual world to your students, prospective families, which there are schools that have been doing that for several years, doing it really well. I think I've been telling my students take advantage of those fairs, connect with the reps, because that's going to be they may have more opportunities to do things like this and talk face to face with admission reps than they ever have before. And I think there'll be a lot of change in terms of the recruitment process because of that. But I'd say take advantage of those virtual college fairs. Use the tools that are comfortable to them, like Instagram. I told students, look at pictures on Instagram from the campuses you're looking at. If you're interested in the school, look at the pre-March 15th, pictures on Instagram of the campus and see, are all of the tags of that college, are they all filled with Greek life and that's not your thing? Are they all filled with sporting events and that's not your thing? Or on the flip side, maybe those are your things and you get really excited because you can see kind of the social climate. There's great tools like Campus Reel, UVisit, online virtual tours, which are great. It doesn't replace, what students can be doing in terms of identifying right fit schools. I think one of the ways that's kind of not totally unique, but I think something that a lot of students haven't considered, but that we encourage our students to do, is that they're looking at a school and they're thinking, oh, I might, I'm looking at this school and I'm considering maybe majoring in business or economics there. Jumping onto LinkedIn and typing in the name of that school and followed by economics can pull up graduates of that school. So you can see, what are people doing who graduated from that institution? It's a great way to explore the outcomes as opposed to just going to the alumni pages. So I think in terms of how can students be exploring, of course, we keep talking about these online things, and again, I just keep thinking I need to pull my students away from technology, but it's an unfortunate reality. There are some schools that are doing unique campus tour experiences. I just saw one, a university in California. I don't remember, I'm blanking on which school it was. They're doing car tours where you come and like you log on to Zoom. The tour guide is in a car in front of you and on Zoom. They're narrating live, and it's just like, it'd be like if we're all in the same tour bus on a campus tour on a big campus. Wow. And so trying to be innovative that way, I think we're going to see even better things come out like that for students to be able to get on and explore campuses. But one of the things I've cautioned families, and I'll say this just as my own opinion, and I from a couple of admission deans, is I know there's some families that want to get onto campuses, so they want to kind of go on their own and explore and do their own self-guided tour on a campus. But campuses a lot of them are not welcoming people onto their campus. They don't want you walking around. And so I've told families, unless they explicitly say, yes, you can come and do your own self-guided tour, I'm not encouraging families to do that kind of thing, to explore campuses.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And I love your LinkedIn tip as far as searching the alumni. I had not considered that, but I'm going to steal that. That's a really good idea. I want to give in terms of, as far as this topic goes, if you're a viewer and you're curious about getting started, I want to give a quick shout out to Strive to Learn founder and head college counselor Josephine Borman. Actually wrote a blog post and did a webinar on that topic just a month and a half or 2 months ago. And so you can find that on our website. It's really informative. Has a lot of resources that you can use. They do involve screen time, as Christina has mentioned. That's kind of just a inevitability right now. It's just reality. But yeah, some good resources for getting started and some good tips and some good information. Okay, so let's see.
And one other thing, William, that I mentioned that doesn't involve screens, but it's involved with identifying colleges. This is going to sound so crazy, but actual books. We have really great books that exist about the college search process, including guides. My favorite is probably The College Finder. I love that book, and actually it can be used by families. It's not just for professionals like us. I think, if a family wants to purchase something where they can find lists of cool schools, and topic specific, major specific type schools, that's one. There's like Colleges That Change Lives is a great book. Where You Go Is Not Who You'll Be. It's not specific in finding a school, but it's a great book about the college process. So I've actually given reading lists to some of my families. I know that's weird, but for people to think about actually buying a physical book now. But I've actually had a couple students who've said, you know what, I would love to just like buy this book and lay in my hammock and check it out and do my college search, start it that way, you know, and get those little tab things like we used to do and start off that way. So anyway, just wanted to add that in.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point. Thank you for adding that on, because that's an easy thing to forget. Text was once printed on pieces of paper, and and that's how people read it, and that's still around. One book in particular, a big fat manual that can be really helpful for especially let's say for a rising junior who's just starting to think about these things, is the Book of Majors. It's over 1,000 pages. It's really fat. You might want to see if and when libraries reopen, you might want to see if you can check it out from the library, although it might be a good one to own. But on that note, as far as figuring out what to study, do you have any advice for students who are just trying to figure out what they might want to study, what they might want to major in, possible career paths?
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you do this in your practice, but one of the things that we use something called U Science, which is an aptitudes and careers inventory. And of course, it's a fee-based thing. You'd have to be able, some states actually are administering it to all of their public school students, which is really interesting. I know the state of Georgia does it for free for all of their students. We do it as part of our services that we offer. So students can come in and then they can do this assessment. It's online, everything. But it's great because it identifies aptitudes that the student has, their natural strengths and abilities, and that it aligns them with careers that might be a good fit for them. So that's one thing. There are other things, that you can find online, like the Holland Code, which is another thing that students can actually go on and access a Holland Code, and it will give you the kinds of career categories that might fit for you based on your interests, your personality style, fun game type things that you can do to kind of identify those things. There are books, there are lots of books out there that are that students can find and check out of the library or get on a Kindle or something like that about majors and exploring those. I'm a big fan of assessments. I know some people are not, but I think because I personally like those kinds of things, I like, things like the Strengths Finder, and I like doing those because I like to learn about myself. And I think because personally, as an undergrad, I studied communication and sociology. I was a communication sociology double major, and I stumbled onto those things. I did not, when I went to college, I fully planned to major in biology and go on eventually into a medical career. And that was based on influencers in my life, parents, teachers, etc., who encouraged me to do that. But also I had people who I knew who were in the medical field. I went to college, and it took me all of a week, to decide that was not at all what I was going to do. And I distinctly remember, calling home and calling my mother, and I was a first-gen college student, calling home and saying, I'm going to major in communication. And the reaction was silence. And then, what are you going to do with that? And so I think a lot of students are afraid to go to college, first of all, undecided, which I tell students that's actually probably what most students should do, is go in undecided because you're going to change your mind most likely. The students who don't are really focused, probably have those aptitudes, for whatever they end up doing. But most students don't. Most students just, I don't want to say arbitrarily, but they choose majors based on people telling them they should do it, or whatever. So anyway, I bring that up because I wish I would have taken some kind of an aptitude assessment or career assessment as a teenager, because I now am in this world where I am doing kind of counseling work with students. I love teenagers, which is so weird. Most people don't like teenagers. I love them. I love getting to spend my days with them. I might not say that when my own kids are teenagers, but I like other people's teenagers.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, when I took I did the U Science assessment, and I've done the Holland Code. they all point to counselor, teacher, all of those fields. I never would have envisioned that as where I'm at now when I was a teenager. This is not at all what I would have thought I was doing. And I have a master's degree in journalism and public relations. Again, not at all what, maybe my aptitudes are in writing, but not, I have other things. So I think exploring is really good, but I also think don't pigeonhole yourself into, if one of those assessments says you should do something, it doesn't mean that you have to sign up that day to go do that. I think keeping your mind open, and one of the things I tell students to do too is find people in your life, connections, who are doing jobs that you think are interesting, and invite them to do a Zoom coffee chat with them, 30 minutes of their time. Invite them to just chat with you about their job and to tell you what their daily job is like and what they wish they would have known coming into that. Man, is that eye-opening. I mean, students really learn a lot, and a lot of misperceptions are moved off, they are cleared up because students don't really know the in and out of a lot of careers. That was a long-winded answer.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just another vote for youth science. We do use it at Strive to Learn. I use it, and Josephine and Melinda and Amanda. And just a note about it, the assessments on youth science, assessment can sound pretty dry. They're actually, in a way, kind of more like games. I always, prep students up that way. Like, don't worry, there's like 10 assessments you have to do, but they're not tests. They are assessing your aptitudes, but it feels more like a game. It's more like, just treat it like a game, like, do your best on it, and don't stress about it. Like, you have to get the right answer. It's not like that at all. So, but yeah, thank you. Really appreciate hearing, kind of how your background and how a tool like this can provide some intention and help you go down a path, but how also you should not feel like you're in a box. You should be willing to challenge any results you get, and go with trust your instincts in addition to things like assessments. What about college essays? When would you say it's a good time for students to get started on the college essays?
I have all of our students right now are working on their essay, the main Common App essay. They're all beginning that process now. We have a couple who are probably close to being finished. A lot of students, and this is not a knock against high school English classes, but a lot of high school students do the college essay as part of their high school English class this spring semester of junior year. And so oftentimes when students bring that to us and we look at it, I would say the majority of the time it's not the essay they end up actually submitting with their applications, not because it's not a great 5-paragraph English essay, but it's because it's a great 5-paragraph English essay, not a college application essay in a lot of ways, so they might be well written, but it's not sharing as much about the student as they really should be. And so our students start to work on the essay now, when they have time. Our goal is that by the time the Common App opens in August, that they're done with that one, with the main essay, because as we know, the supplements can be overwhelming depending on the kinds of schools the student might be applying to. They could end up with a dozen supplements, depending on the schools. And I don't want them to be worrying about that in tandem with the main Common App essay. I want that to be done. And also, once they get back to school, most of our students are back in school by the end of August, early September. I want them to have time to focus on other things as well. I don't want them to feel like this is just, overwhelming them and keeping them from doing fun senior stuff or, being involved in things. And so essay writing we're doing now. For some of our students, they will start their supplemental essays in July if they become available. If we see them on a website and they want to get a head start and they don't have things going on, which is the case this year. We've got a lot of kids whose summer programs or camps or jobs have been canceled for the summer. And so they do have a little bit of free time to work on things. And so I'm encouraging students, I tell them all the time, put down bullet point thoughts, and then it'll, you can eventually, it'll make its way to an essay. But I don't want you to feel like you have to sit down at the computer and hammer it out. Like it's probably not going to be the best way to do it. So yeah, that's what we're doing.
Great. Yeah, I totally concur. I think this is a great time to just, start getting those ideas down. The personal statement, you can count on it being what it is. It's already been confirmed that the prompts are going to be the
Right.
same for this year. And, the Common App personal statement is a thing where the prompt is secondary because prompt 7 is basically share an essay on any topic of your choice. So, you don't need to start with a prompt for the personal statement. I did want to ask about something that's unique to this year that we alluded to earlier. For the 2021 Common App, there's going to be an
Mhm.
optional section where students can write about how COVID-19, how the pandemic has affected their lives in 250 words or less. So you don't have that much space. Do you have any kind of specific advice or recommendations for rising seniors for that prompt?
Sure. Yeah, sure. So when I've talked with my rising seniors about it, I've said the vast majority of you will write nothing in that spot. And there is a reason why it says optional, because it is not a required piece. It's not something you need to figure out, oh, what should I put in there? If you're feeling that way, then you probably don't have to put anything in there. We've really cautioned students on thinking about that box as being the place where they explain, a poor grade, or they explain something that we could probably take their name off of that application and put 2,000 other students' names at the top, and they've had that same exact scenario happen. I would say that the space should really be reserved for those students who themselves have had and have been personally affected by COVID, have had a parent, have had a family member that they've lost. It could also be one of the ways I've thought about this too. It could potentially also be, if their family financial situation has impacted some other piece of their life because of this. I mean, there's, with people losing jobs or being furloughed, there could be a big financial implications, but it also can impact just the family structure. I mean, there could be something going on there, a loss of a home. If they've lost income, maybe they are now living somewhere else, and that's impacted their, all kinds of things. The hardest part about that prompt is that I think the majority of my students could write about the impact it's had on their mental health. And I don't want to discourage that, but I think if they are going to use that space, we all know that most college admission reviewers are spending, the last data point I heard, the last statistic I heard is 3 to 8 minutes on reviewing an application. This is adding in another piece. So all those other parts of your application are going to get less time if you're putting something here, because that's another thing they have to look at. So do we really want to do that, or do we want to make sure that they're really focusing on your activities or your awards and honors or your personal statement? I think yes. I think that's what we'd rather them focus on that instead of something that, again, doesn't feel like I don't want to say isn't important, because it's important to the student. I mean, that's, I always tell students, if it's that important to you that you want to write in something for that, absolutely, I'm not going to tell you not to, but let's look at it in terms of that's taking some time away from that review. Is that okay with you? Are you okay with them, focusing less on these other things? So again, I think the majority of students will not put anything in that space. I worry that there will be a lot of kids who feel like they have to. It's like the blank line, there's a reason the Common App used to have all the activity lines visible, so you could see all 10 spaces, and students felt like they had to fill them all in. So they've changed that now, obviously, so you have to add another, because they didn't want the students in their mind to think it's a blank space. That means it's missing something. I need to put something there. So and the nice thing is that the school counselors, will have an opportunity as well to write something. So if it truly, there was an academic impact or a family impact, because I'm sure many of the school counselors know what's happening with their students' families, they'll also be able to address things in their own spot on the counselor piece. So yeah, so that's what we're advising our students about, that piece.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And we have time for about one more question. So kind of to bring it back around to general things with the summer, I just wanted to ask how do you think students and parents can best stay up to date with the latest changes due to COVID-19 as far as for college admissions. Do you have any recommended resources?
I think I hesitate to say great resources would be the best for families because of course for us the great resources are things like the Chronicle of Higher Education, Inside Higher Ed, our daily news things, but I wouldn't want to overwhelm families. But I will say there are some good resource pages. I'll put a plug, and we have a resource page on our blog, for example, where we're just keeping links to like NCAA updates, testing updates from ACT and SAT, these virtual college fairs, a link to those. I think if you can find a resource like that, where it's a one-stop shop. The Chronicle has of Higher Education, though it's normally behind a paywall. They have a page. They have a post up that's been up for the last 2 months, I think, on colleges' plans for reopening in the fall. So families can go to that and see what's happening. A lot of families, rising senior families, they're curious. It's not impacting them, but I had families who said, do you know if Northeastern going to be on campus in the fall? Is Stanford going to, or John Carroll or whatever? They're just curious. It's not impacting their child this year, but they'd also like to see, and I think it's important for them to see, how are colleges communicating and handling the situation now, because it's a good indicator of the way that the college might handle things going forward with their own children, with the ones as they go ahead. So in terms of resources, I'll tell you what to stay away from. I tell my families, stay off of College Confidential. Don't go on there and try to find the answers to what's going on. It has its usefulness in some ways, but it is not an authoritative source. It's not a source that is, that you can find the answers. In fact, it just ends up perpetuating a lot of myths about things. The very best resources, truthfully, are the colleges themselves. Have students sign up, go on to and get on the inquiry lists for the colleges that they're even starting to consider, because those colleges are sending out good updates. They're kind of like mailing lists, the email lists. And that's how straight from the horse's mouth. That's what you have to do. There's no sense in, there are a lot of parent Facebook groups for college going children, teens, which can be very good and have good information. There are others that are not. They are, one person posts something and it just snowballs into like the game of telephone where the message changes as it goes through. And so I think, if there's a question about a testing policy at a school, or there's a question, are they going test optional? Are they doing this? What are they looking for? The colleges are doing the very best job they can right now of sharing that information on their websites. So that's where they should really be looking. And that's my opinion, but I think that that's the best.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so as we wrap up, I just want to mention a few Strive to Learn related things. So definitely check out our blog. It's going to be going up within 48 hours about this topic. I wrote a blog post about this. It'll also have a link to recording of this live Q&A in the blog post. Also sign up on our website to receive our newsletters and notifications about future events like this one. We have some more great live Q&As coming up throughout the summer. Topics such as how to craft a strong activities list for your college applications, how to transition successfully from high school to college, how to apply to graduate school, how to prepare for the GRE, and many more. We also offer free consultations if you'd like to find out how we can help with your educational goals. And we have some need-based scholarships available. And lastly, check out the donations-based workshops we are offering online called our Pay What You Can workshops. We have an open tutoring session on Mondays at 4:30 where you can ask any questions from SAT, ACT to biology, to history, to calculus. And then we also have our college admissions counseling session on Wednesdays at 4, so same time, but every Wednesday at 4. Anyone can ask our head counselor, Josephine Borman, any college admissions related questions. Sign up on our website at strive2learn.com and click on online workshops. And you can find all of these things I just mentioned at the link in our bio. So, Christina, thank you so much. This has been so valuable. I appreciate you sharing your experience and expertise and just all this great info with our community. So thank you so much. Her website is, or her company is Estrella Consulting, and it's www.estrellaconsulting.com. Right?
Right.
Okay. Uh,
Correct.
and to everyone that's watching, please DM us with any future topics you'd like to see us cover. And thank you so much for joining. And thanks again, Christina.
Awesome.
Have a
Thanks,
great
William.